Hi everyone, today I'll be watching What is the Worst Legendary Pokemon? By Mr. VGC. That's Hi, I'm Maple. I like Pokemon. I am bad at competitive. I am bad at competitive. I played like Pokemon Champions a little bit, and then I went, yeah, I'm okay with being like Great Ball. I'm okay being Great Ball. I probably need more practice and actually like sit down and learn, but it's fine. I like watching Pokemon. Okay, I'm gonna go to the React corner. I'm excited to watch this with you guys today, okay? Whoa.
Legendary Pokemon are supposed to be, well, legendary, and most of them really do live up to the hype, but not all of them. Some legendary Pokemon are only legendary.
I need a sandwich! Wait, where's the video? Oh, video! I need a sandwich! Okay, this one's like really cute though. You get to basically raise your own motorcycle.
For how unbelievably terrible they are. And that got me thinking, what is the worst legendary Pokemon of all time? Well, in order to figure that out, I would obviously need to find the contenders. So I decided to make this video, which will certainly not lead to a single rage-filled YouTube comment talking about how I don't know what I'm talking about and their favorite legendary is actually really good and I just don't believe in it enough to see it. If your favorite legendary is on this list and you are thinking about writing an angry YouTube comment.
It's really funny though, because sometimes I get these comments on a React video and I'm just reacting to his stuff, but it's just like, it's like, wow, I like that Pokemon. You should have just tried harder with it. I'm just like, not my video. Bro, I'm just here for the ride. It's like, no, you're supposed to make it work. I don't care. It's like, bro, I'm just here for the ride. And he's just looking at this from a completely competitive standpoint. You can make it work in your regular playthrough, or you can try on the ladder yourself. I'm just here for the ride.
Please just keep in mind that I'm talking strictly about competitive Pokemon here. I love a lot of the legendaries on this list, but that doesn't redeem them in the eyes of the gods of Pokemon tournament.
Incineroar! Legend! What? But yeah, I like a lot of Pokemon that he has mentioned on his, this is the worst type of, this is the worst grass type and that kind of stuff. It's like, or this is the best one. It's like, I like a lot of Pokemon that happen to suck. Like, they suck. And I love them. Despite their sucking. But yeah, it's just like they're just not gonna work in champions, in like championships and that kind of stuff.
On that note, I'm not gonna talk about any not fully evolved legendaries or legendaries that are strictly worse versions of their true forms.
I don't like that. Oh, there is like a Twitter account I remember looking at where it's like peeled Pokemon. I'll like put a couple of them. I'll send a couple of screenshots to my editors with this. But yeah, no, the peeled Pokemon, sometimes they're like, I'm like, I don't like those. I don't like these, but I don't like those.
And that's because I love Nebby and I would never say anything bad about it. Also, I'm not going to talk about any mythical Pokemon because they're never legal in official competitive tournaments. You're safe for now, Melton. Melton sounds like what I do to my grilled cheese. But you know who isn't safe? Moltres. Coming in at number 8, which is technically the best of the bad Pokemon. Moltres is still, well, not great.
It's quad weak to rock. To be fair, if I was a bird on fire, I'd also be weak to a rock.
I'm talking about exclusively Kanto Moltres here, by the way. Galarian Moltres is my homie. But what makes Kanto Moltres so much worse? In a word, the typing. Fire and Flying is just not very good, despite there being several good Fire and Flying type Pokemon trying very hard to prove me wrong. Both types being weak to Rock, in addition to being weak to common types Water and Electric, is just
every now and then you get surprised by like a bulky Charizard and then it just lives a rock slide and that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, now I'm screwed.
Too much to offset the actual pretty good defensive spread. Just like how putting super gourmet homegrown tomatoes isn't enough to save a salad when the lettuce is a couple years old. Also, it doesn't help that neither fire or flying moves can hit rock types for even neutral damage, compounding Moltres' Stony Sorrows. That could be a band name actually, the Stony Sorrows. Moltres' typing isn't its only issue though. The stats aren't doing it any favors. It's not even that they're bad, it's more like they just aren't doing any one thing well enough to be worth using. Moltres has a middling speed stat, pretty good bulk, and an O.
I like the 3D model on this one. Pull up.
Enough to be worth using.
This T-pose is so powerful. Holy shit. Look at his face.
Moltres has a middling speed stat, pretty good bulk, and an okay special attack stat. But doing a bunch of things just okay is not as useful as doing a couple things really well.
Oh, hold up. Let me just take a look at something real quick. I found it. It's very okay. I knew it. Chandelure has 145 special attack. it is kind of crazy that having 125 just doesn't cut it, but it just doesn't cut it.
Well, at least that's what I tell myself when I remember that instead of knowing actually, useful skills, I am instead the best at a video game marketed towards children. But unlike my Pokemon
That's what I tell myself when I stream, except I'm not the best at anything there either.
skills, there's nothing exceptional about Moltres' stats. Something unfortunately true for the flaming chicken across the board. Many Pokemon with okay typing and stats are saved by their abilities, and that's actually the case for some of the other fire and flying type Pokemon. Unfortunately, out of all the Pokemon
Pressure.
of its type, Moltres has the worst abilities. It gets pressure, an
Yeah.
ability that's borderline useless, as all it does is drain your opponent's PP by one more than normal, and its hidden ability isn't great either.
Oh, I didn't even know it had a hidden ability. Okay.
It's Flame Body, providing a chance to burn whenever a Pokemon makes contact with Moltres. And to be clear, this is a good ability. Burning physical attackers is super valuable, but compared to Solar Power, Drought, or Gale Wings, it's a lot worse, especially when we consider, again, that Moltres' typing makes keeping it alive, not the easiest mission in the game.
Yeah, and plus it would have to make contact in the first place for Flame Body to even matter, and if you're hitting something with a Rock Slide, I don't think you're touching it.
Galarian Moltres gets a signature move called Fiery Wrath, which is actually quite good. But Kanto Moltres has no such equivalent. While the moves it learns are overall solid,
Yo, his Seismic Toss animation goes crazy. Wait.
Kanto Moltres has
Yo!
no such equivalent. While the moves it learns are overall solid, it doesn't have a good signature attack. And while it does learn all the regular fire and flying moves you'd expect, there's nothing exceptional in its kit, which is kind of the whole story here, isn't it? Despite everything stacked against it, Moltres has seen some usage over the years, mostly on rain teams. Its move Hurricane is quite powerful in the rain, and teams built around rain struggle to use fire types normally given how bad the weather is for them. So Moltres could fill a niche. Moltres even placed as high as 4th at an international level tournament back in 2019, when powerful restricted Pokemon were legal, using Hurricane to hit the grass types that resisted its partner Kyogre, Burn Up to turn off its fire typing, Tailwind to support its teammates, and Roar to get rid of Xerneas, whose fairy moves it resists. The player who used Moltres was the reigning world champion at the time. So while not great, Moltres also wasn't that bad, at least at one point in time. And honestly, the same can kind of be said for our number 7 slot, Virizion. Now, don't get me wrong, Virizion is undoubtedly one of the worst legendary Pokemon ever made, but knowing the absolute garbage Pokemon we have coming up, I'm inclined to look at Virizion a little more favorably.
Damn, these I don't know, the worst ever videos are always really brutal. It's like, you see, he sucks, but he's not as bad as the next guy coming up. The next guy is absolute dog shit, but this guy, he still sucks, don't get me wrong. It's just very funny. I know that's the point of the video of what is the worst legendary Pokemon, but still, it's very funny.
Whenever I use the word inclined, I feel a little fancier. Like, ooh, yes, I do feel so inclined for a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. Thank you, my good sir. And one thing that always makes me feel fancier is wearing my Holzkern watch, the sponsor of today's video. Holzkern's my personal favorite sponsor that we have here on this channel.
Oh wait, this is a sponsor. I should need to get Schmoll.
Hello there. It is I, Small Meeple. I like watches.
really love watches, and I've worn
I
a
like
Holzkern watch
watches.
for most of the last 2 years. What makes Holzkern different from other companies is their use of natural materials in all their products, such as wood and stone. These are the two most recent
I'm
watches
all
Holzkern
natural.
sent me, and
I'm
personally,
small.
I'm a big fan. If watches aren't your thing, they have other products too, such as jewelry. I've gotten some as gifts for my loved ones before, and it always goes over really well. Speaking of, Holzkern
That
watches
looks
make a great gift
delicious.
for Father's Day if you're currently looking for something. My dad loves watches, which is probably why I like them too, to be honest. Go to holzkern.com/wolfievgc and
I
use
would
code
eat
Wolfie
these.
for 15% off your purchase. Thanks again to Holzkern for sponsoring this video.
This is an
What makes
expensive
Virizion
snack.
So bad is
Oh, heck it,
similar to
what?
Moltres, a cocktail of issues.
Whoa, 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 whoa. The sponsor's over.
Similar to
I'm almost there.
Thanks again to Holzkern for sponsoring this video.
Whoa, the sponsor is over, which means I must take my leave. I'm going back to the closet now, guys. That's where I live. I live in Big Maple's closet, and it's almost time for dinner, so I'm gonna go eat her food before she gets to it.
I'm back. Yeah. What did Schmoll say about, like, eating something She's talking about the sponsor, right? Yeah, right?
What makes Virizion so bad is, similar to Moltres, a cocktail of issues. First, the typing. Grass and fighting is not a good combination. Both types are weak to flying, and you have 5 weaknesses, though all 6 of your resistances are actually pretty high value. The thing about having a double weakness, though, is that even relatively weak moves of that type will often take a one-hit KO, making it extremely difficult to keep Virizion alive. This isn't as big a deal when a Pokemon is really frail, because more often than not, being doubly weak or singly weak to a move both result in your Pokemon doing a little disappearing act. But on a Pokemon with more bulk, double weaknesses are a huge liability. To make matters worse, Grass and Fighting are actually even worse offensively, with Flying, Bug, and Poison-type Pokemon resisting both types. Virizion stats are okay, but they have a major issue. While this wireless provides
The fastest 4G Pokemon that you know of a region. Every time I see Virizion, I think it says Verizon. Yeah. The funny thing is about this Pokemon, and I guess the other ones, it's wrong to call them, I'm gonna call them horses. The other horses, trust. I like how they just show up in the middle of the road, especially this one, but you can just walk around him. Because when I play a randomizer, I'm not taking an extra encounter of something that could just kill my ass in one hit if I don't have to. You know?
is reasonably fast, which is to be expected, I guess, and its special bulk is good and physical bulk fine. The offensive stats are abysmal. For a legendary Pokemon especially, this is a joke. Virizion's offenses are almost identical to Girafarig. What were they thinking? It has worse offensive stats than Pincurchin. A Pincushion is stronger than a legendary Pokemon, and this is a massive deal. It's not that every Pokemon needs to be, you know, the centerpiece of the damage buffet, but every Pokemon that you bring to a battle needs to be able to contribute in some way. Some Pokemon that aren't supposed to be doing
Again! Incineroar! Again!
damage even contribute a little bit too much. Virizion doesn't have the defensive typing or the supporting move pool to work as a support Pokemon, but without being able to do damage itself, it's kind of in a no service zone. Please don't leave me. Also, please check and see if you're subscribed. My team and I work really hard on all these videos, and a lot of people watch them without ever realizing that they aren't actually subscribed. You don't have to do it right now either, but once I've earned your trust that my videos are going to be worth it, I hope you'll at least consider becoming subscribed. Virizion's ability is justified, and you would be justified if you never thought about using Virizion. This ability gives Virizion an attack boost every time it's hit by a dark type move. While we've seen this ability pop off before when paired with the move Beat Up, which hits 4 times, therefore giving 4 attack boosts, Virizion's big brother Terrakion is a way better fit for this strategy with its higher attack stat and access to spread move Rock Slide.
I feel like I saw it beat up very often back in the Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield beta, I think it was like beat up on, what was it, Lucario or something? Yeah.
While Justified will occasionally activate on Virizion, it's not a reliable attack and often requires you to get a prediction right. In terms of moves, Virizion is like, fine. It gets some strong physical moves, but its special attacks are rough. It basically can't make use of its fighting coverage on the special side unless you like to play Pokemon like it's a carnival game. It does get setup moves like Swords Dance and Calm Mind, but with its numerous weaknesses, it's hard to actually find the time to set it up. Plus, doubling Virizion's mediocre attack stat is a lot more underwhelming than it should be. Virizion has seen some usage over the years, mostly when its specific coverage is valuable. For example, it placed second at a regional in 2018 due to its ability to hit lots of the popular Pokemon for super effective damage with Leaf Blade, Close Combat, and Stone Edge. Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Kartana, Mega Kangaskhan, Bisharp, Mega Charizard, and more were all threatened to some degree by Virizion. Despite the good finish, Virizion didn't catch on and quickly faded back into the forest of obscurity. Speaking of obscurity, let's talk about our number 6 slot, Wo Chen. Added in Scarlet and Violet, Wo Chen is just sad.
Oh, I don't think I ever got to Wo Chen because I don't think I finished this part of the game.
It's the 4th member of the Ruinous Quartet.
I do like the art for this though. I like the very old style like ink art,
which is probably what my violin quartet should have been named in 5th grade. But while each of the other members was metagame defining at some point during the first year of Scarlet and Violet,
Yeah, because I recognize this one in the top right. I know of Wo-Chen. I could not tell you what the bottom two look like, but that's just me not being responsible and finishing my games at.
Quartet, which is probably what my violin quartet should have been named in 5th grade. But while each of the other members was metagame defining at some point during the first year of Scarlet and Violet's release, and Chen Pao even won Worlds, Wo-Chen has only been relevant because of this meme. So what makes Wo-Chen so bad? Well, for starters, it's pretty much worse in every aspect than the other 3 treasures of Ruin. The typing is an easy place to start. Wo-Chen has 7 weaknesses, including a double weakness to Bug. And we already know that having a quadruple weakness is a big deal, but Bug is an especially bad type to be weak to. See, while Bug type Pokemon are the worst in the game, the Bug type move U-Turn is both incredibly strong and widely used. Pokemon like Urshifu and Rillaboom that Wo-Chen would otherwise do decently against suddenly can deal massive damage while also switching out. And that's not even to mention how bad it is to be weak to fairy and fire type moves. Offensively, Wo-Chen is a bit stronger. While Grass and Dark can only hit 5 types for super effective damage, there's no single type in the game that can resist both. Of course, hitting things for neutral damage is a lot less impactful once we've seen the offensive stats Wo-Chen is working with. That's right, folks, they're almost exactly identical.
It's Virizion stats. Oh no. Okay, wait. A little less HP in attack, and then it just puts that into defense, and it's a little less speed. Not a little, actually, quite a decent amount, and also 10 less BSC to work with.
Identical to Virizions, with 5 points being moved out of attack into special attack. Moving these 5 points around has about as much impact as posting an angry comment about how much you love Wo-Chen and it actually isn't bad. And
I love Wo-Chen. You're not trying hard enough to actually make him meta. You don't love Pokemon, bleh.
this YouTuber just doesn't know what he's talking about. In other words, not much. On the other hand, while Wo-Chen isn't super fast, it does have really tremendous bulk. Far superior to Virizion's actually. Not that it really helps. And that's for 2 reasons. One, Wo-Chen doesn't have the move pool to really benefit from sticking around. If it got Spore, Rage Powder, heck, even Sleep Powder, we could talk. But most of the utility Wo-Chen can provide is by using Ruination to cut a target's HP in half. And Ting Lu is better for this role anyway. The second reason is that Wo-Chen's typing really works against it. It has the bulk to stick around, but because it has so many common, devastating weaknesses, it ends up feeling a lot frailer than it actually is. If Wo-Chen were Grass and Steel type or Dark and Poison type, I think it could have been a top contender. But with its current typing, it really drew the short end of the stock.
Grass Steel will be very interesting. There's like one Grass Steel, right? Ferrothorn, I think? I don't remember exactly. Sure, you still have to deal with the fact that it still has a quad weakness now to fire instead of bug, but like, Grass Steel's interesting.
And then there's the ability. Wo-Chen got the worst ability of the quartet, the Tablets of Ruin, which is also another name for the iPads which are being used by toddlers. This ability reduces
iPad baby! Both of my main editors are Zoomers. Y'all aren't iPad babies, right? Y'all grew up without like being exposed to an iPad as a 3-year-old, right? Can you like confirm? I don't know.
The attack stats of all their Pokemon on the field while it's in play. And it's not that this ability is bad, it's just nowhere near as good as the abilities given to the other ruinous beasts. What you have to understand is that prior to Chen Pao, Chi Yu, and Ting Lu, there were no abilities that did anything like what they can do. If you wanted to lower your opponent's stats, you needed to use a move. Okay, there were some niche abilities like Battery and Power Spot that could power up your partners, but these were only given to really specific gimmicky Pokemon, not legendaries. Wo-Chen's ability, however, is different. See, one of the best and most common abilities in competitive Pokemon can lower your opponent's
This is like Incineroar number 3. Yo!
attack stats. Maybe you've heard of it before? Maybe you've seen this ability being used by a certain Pokemon?
Does this count as 4?
Maybe. The plus side
5?
of Intimidate is that it doesn't lower your own partner's attack stat, and
There's
also
2
that the
here that
benefit can
count
stick
7.
around even when the Intimidate user is off the field.
Yeah,
While
that's a
there
lot.
is some value
That was a lot Incineroar in one sitting. Holy shit, calm down.
in the Tablets of Ruin that Intimidate can't provide, like against Pokemon where you either can't or don't want to lower their attack stats, it isn't enough to justify using Wo-Chen. Okay, now we're getting into the really bad Pokemon. Before this point, every Pokemon had a niche. Now, was it a good niche? No, but each legendary Pokemon thus far has had something unique about it. For the Pokemon that follow, not only are they generally not very good Pokemon, they're for the most part inferior versions of other stronger Pokemon. Mesprit is our first example, coming in at number 5.
Mesprit was on the thumbnail, so I was wondering where she'd land.
Mesprit is a pure Psychic type Pokemon with the ability Levitate. And what's fun about that is that Mesprit is one of 4 pure Psychic type levitating legendary Pokemon introduced in Diamond and Pearl. That's not even counting the 2 non-legendary Psychic type levitators added this gen either. Mesprit is one of the most unfortunate legendary Pokemon of all time because it is in almost every way just a worse version of Cresselia. See, almost all good Psychic type Pokemon fall into one of 2 categories: support Pokemon or attacker. Supporting Psychic type Pokemon focus on their good natural bulk to offset their lack of resistances, and often use non-damaging moves to influence the battle. Offensive Psychic types instead try to overwhelm opponents with Psychic type damage, and often take advantage of secondary types or coverage moves to supplement their damage output. Mesprit stats put it kind of in the middle of these 2 categories.
So another Pokemon that tries to do a little bit too much but ends up doing nothing at all. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be common for the next couple of Pokemon he mentions as well.
Which is a really bad thing. It has good bulk and respectable special attack, but it's not great in either dimension. But because it's relatively slow, it's forced to play as a supporting Pokemon rather than an offensive one. Keep in mind it isn't slow enough to work as a Trick Room attacker, but it's also not fast enough to do much outside of Trick Room either. But if you want a mid-speed supporting Psychic type Pokemon, you'd almost always prefer Cresselia, one of the greatest Pokemon of all time. All the moves Mesprit would want to use, like Trick Room, Helping Hand, and Skill Swap, Cresselia can use as well. And Cresselia's move pool is even deeper, with great moves like Icy Wind. The only real
Icy Wind for like speed control, yeah.
advantage Mesprit has over Cresselia is its higher special attack stat. But because it's forced into using a support set, it's not worth the bulk you give up by using Mesprit instead of Cress. But our number 4 worst legendary Pokemon has a different issue compared to Mesprit. It's not that another Pokemon does its job better, it's that whatever its job is, nobody wants to do it because it sucks. The number 4 slot goes to Regice.
Okay, he might suck, but consider that he makes great sounds.
It's a battle, win or lose. It's the friends you make. Subscribe or you will lose. I'm Small Meeple. Bye.
Regice? Regice? I guess it's Regirock, Registeel, Regice. I'm gonna say Regice. Regice is a pure ice type with the ability Clear Body, which prevents stat drops. While Clear Body is a great ability on certain Pokemon, its main use is to prevent attack drops from Intimidate and speed drops from Icy Wind, Electroweb, and Bulldoze. And as Regice is a slow special attacker, well, let's just say it's clear that any other ability would body this one.
Thank you, Wolfie.
Ice is the single worst defensive type in the game, sticking your Pokemon with 4 weaknesses in exchange for only a single resistance to ice, no less. This is a problem because Regice is obviously intended to be used as a bulky special attacker with its slow speed and incredible special defense.
200. I forgot. I keep needing to remind myself, but every single Reggie just has like a 200 stat somewhere.
Stat. Regice is no slouch on the physical side either, being tanky enough, but of course it can't really make use of this good defensive spread because of how terrible ice is. Without resistances, Regice can't afford to take either powerful physical attacks or super effective special attacks. And the worst part is, even if it does make it through a turn unscathed, it can't do much to fire back. To ice back? Regice's special attack stat is shockingly low. Freezingly low? It's lower than Solosis and Glimmet. Look, I understand not wanting to make a Pokemon overpowered, but this is a legendary that we're talking about. It should at least be able to do some damage, right? To make matters worse, Regice's move pool got the cold shoulder from Game Freak 2. Oh, okay, I knew I'd get there. While it learns a bunch of ice moves and a few electric moves too, that's just about it. And unlike the most recent Reggie editions, Regice doesn't get a signature move of its own. The only good thing I can say about Regice is it might have hope for the future. With the change from hail to snow, ice-type Pokemon got a major buff. So much so that we saw Articuno, a Pokemon that would have been on this list for sure if I'd made it 6 months ago, actually become a major threat. I think Regice has a lot less going for it than Articuno, but hey, you never know. Okay, before we get into our top 3 real garbage Pokemon, I want to do some honorable mentions. First, the Ultra Beasts. I never knew this, but apparently these Pokemon are legendaries, and maybe this is my bias, they don't feel like legendaries to me, so I'm including them here rather than the main list.
Yeah, I feel like for the Ultra Beast, a lot of people tend to forget that they are legendaries just because they're kind of in literally a dimension of their own. So even when you have to go out of your way to find the legendaries in mainline games, it just becomes a lot more difficult when it comes to the Ultra Beast, or at least more awkward.
The worst Ultra Beasts by far are Guzzlord and Blacephalon.
Okay, but like, this one screams. So he's funny. Competitive wise, yeah, probably dog shit, but he's funny. And I don't know shit about this one. You're on your own, buddy.
While nearly every other Ultra Beast had some usage at some point, these two were never good. On that note, Silvally. This is technically a legendary Pokemon, but it really doesn't feel that way, and also it's really bad. I almost brought Silvally to Worlds in 2017, and let me just say that I'm very glad that I didn't. You could actually make a case that type Null is better than Silvally, but this isn't the place for that. Lastly, Enamorus Incarnate. This was the closest normal legendary to making it on my list, but ultimately I left it off because we've only had it for such a short amount of time that it would be unfair to judge it too soon. And if it showed up in the right format at the right time, I think it could potentially be strong. All right, now
Enamorus Therian form looks like a weird form, and I don't like it.
Now we're into the top 3. And may I just say, these last legendary Pokemon are really bad. Like, you could forget that they're legendaries level of bad. So let's start out with number 3, Uxie. Uxie? I think it's Uxie. I don't know. I
think in the anime it was pronounced Yuxi, but it's been a long time.
Sorry, don't yell at me. I think the biggest issue with what I've done as a YouTuber is that sometimes I used to pronounce things like Pokemon names wrong as a joke, but I think I'm also just naturally bad at pronouncing the names wrong. And so now when I do it wrong, people get mad at me because I think it's intentional. Like I said slacking because it's all, no, I said slaking.
I say slaking. Yo, Slay King, slay.
That's why I always called it when I was a kid, and then people got so mad at me because obviously I guess it's slacking, but I never knew, and people thought I was just like engagement farming, but I wasn't engagement farming. I'm just stupid. Anyway, I'm gonna call
I'm just stupid too. Yo, gang gang. Yeah, I've always said Slay King. The one I am known for in my Twitch chat is Lapras, because I've always pronounced Lapras as a kid, from the time as a kid, Lapras, and no one corrected me. So when I said Lapras on stream, people go, huh? Maple, it's Lapras. And I'm like, well, I'm not changing. It's too late. I'm stubborn.
Uxie, and if it's wrong, and it's obviously wrong, then I'm sorry, but I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise. Uxie is just so unfortunate because everything wrong with Mesprit is wrong with Uxie. But it's worse. See, Uxie suffers from being Cresselia Jr. syndrome, but the case is even more severe than with Mesprit. And that's because while Mesprit and Uxie have near identical move pools, their stats differ. I told you that Mesprit was stuck between being a defensive supporting type and an offensive sweeper, right? Well, Uxie isn't stuck in the middle. It's very clearly intended to be the defensive member of the Lake Trio. But let's compare Uxie's stats to Cresselia's. Yeah, Uxie's stats are almost strictly worse, and its move pool is also worse. Now, I should mention that I just showed you old Cresselia's stats. In Scarlet and Violet, it had both its defenses reduced by 10. And while this does make Uxie look a little bit better by comparison, that's without considering the buff Cresselia received. Cresselia was given a signature move that heals both itself and its partner by a quarter of their max health and then removes any status conditions. As you can imagine,
that's good.
and that buff to Cresselia, even factoring in the defense drops, and only furthers the gap between Cresselia and Uxie. There's really no reason to use Uxie over Cresselia, and that's part of the reason almost nobody has ever used it. The fact that they're from the same game also means that whenever Uxie is around, Cresselia is likely to be too, which would be Uxie's only hope to be in a game that Cress isn't. And unlike Regice, who is hope for the future, I'm not sure how much there is for Uxie. The main advantage of using a Pokemon like Uxie is the surprise factor. Your opponents won't be as experienced against it. But that's way less of a big deal in modern competitive Pokemon, where tournaments are best 2 out of 3, and we play a format called Open Team Sheet, where the moves, items, and abilities of our Pokemon are given to our opponents before the battle begins. If Uxie had shown up a generation earlier or Cresselia a generation later, things might have been different. But that's not the world we live in. At least Azelf escaped my list for now. Our number 2 worst legendary Pokemon of all time is another Pokemon whose sibling we've already seen. Everybody welcome in Cobalion. This iron mountain goat? What is Cobalion? It's the iron
I call them horses, but I also said that was wrong.
will Pokemon, which I assume is because you'd need an iron will and probably lead poisoning to ever want to use it. Anyway, Cobalion is unbelievably terrible.
Wait, did I see that it has Justified on a steel fighting? Who's hitting this thing with a dark type move?
Lead poisoning to ever want to use it. Anyway, Cobalion is unbelievably terrible, which is messed up because they actually look like they tried with this one. Good typing, some good moves, and then just the dumbest stats you've ever seen. Walt, bring up Cobalion's attacking stats.
And sometimes you're born and you just suck. Sorry, bro. It's just how it is with Pokemon. Sometimes they try, but then you're born and you suck.
They did it again on 2 members of a trio. What do they have against these Pokemon? Why would they do this? Cobalion has really nice physical bulk, usable special bulk, and good speed. And then they gave it this? 90 attack and special attack? I'm not even doing a comparison for this one. Y'all already know it's bad. Fighting and steel are good coverage too, because the fairy types that resist fighting are weak to steel, and fighting hit the steel types that resist steel. Steel, steel, steel. Plus, you get 8 resistances and an immunity with only 3 weaknesses.
Yeah, like typing, like overall typing, it's like good, but then the stats, you're like, ah.
Not that any of this matters though. Pokemon need to be able to contribute when they're brought to a battle. And Cobalion doesn't have the offensive stats to be a damaging Pokemon, or the supporting moves to be a support. There was one brief moment during Sword and Shield where Cobalion was playable. It was used as a Dynamax attacker. You'd pair it with a fast beat-up Pokemon like Whimsicott to give it 4 attack boosts, and use Dynamax's increased power to boost its move's damage further. Max Steel Spike let Cobalion boost its team's defense stats, and the lack of a good spread move like Terrakion's Rock Slide didn't matter as much because all Dynamax moves only hit one Pokemon anyway. This strategy didn't ever really catch on, and it also wasn't actually that good, but it is the only time that I can ever remember Cobalion being used.
Hey, this is like where the angry comment says you should have tried, and guess what? People did try.
I don't think that there's any hope for Cobalion going forward, but they did at least give it a Paradox Pokemon that is stronger. I like to think that they were trying to fix their mistakes from the past with Iron Crown. It's just too bad they didn't succeed with Iron Leaves. Sorry, Virizion. Which brings us to the number 1 worst legendary Pokemon of all time. And while many of you probably have a Pokemon in mind for the number 1 slot, most of you are probably wrong. This Pokemon is
There's just like random Megalovania in the background. It's just really funny.
so bad that almost everyone watching this video will have wiped it from their memory in order to preserve their sanity, but not me. I knew what I had to do to remember a Pokemon.
Rip everybody that was watching this at 3 a.m. in the dark. Or if my editor was editing this at 3 a.m. in the dark.
Pokemon that should never have been created, to bear witness to the crimes of Game Freak, to tell the world what they had done. I stared into the abyss, and Monkey Dory stared back. Calling this thing a legendary feels like an insult
This shit's a legendary? I thought he was just some funny Jokemon. I don't know, man.
to actual legendary Pokemon. I can't say a single good thing about Monkey Dory, so I guess let's go through the bad. First, typing. Are you serious? Poison and Psychic? Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea for a legendary. Stupid Jimmy Neutron looking Pokemon. This combo doesn't have that many weaknesses or resistances. Only hits 4 types for super effective damage, and can't damage steel types for even neutral. In other words, it doesn't interact with the other types all that much. And it is possible for a Pokemon like this to be really strong if it has incredible stats. So why don't we take a look at Monkey Dory's stats? I cannot emphasize enough how abysmal this stat spread is. Think about it this way. Pokemon like Virizion and Cobalion are Pokemon that are bad almost entirely because they're lacking just one usable stat in their offenses, despite their other stats being across the board good. Monkey Dory has the opposite problem. It has one good stat with the rest being all around pretty
555. That BST is the same as like an Arcanine.
terrible. First, the bulk. Monkey Dory is both very frail and doesn't have many resistances. And that means that you're going to be forced to run a defensive item on it almost always to ensure that it can actually stay on the field for more than one attack. It is fast, but not fast enough to justify its awful defensive spread. If this were Black and White or X and Y, Monkey Dory might be considered a fast Pokemon, but in Scarlet and Violet, half the Pokemon are track stars. And then we have its special attack, which is good, but not great. It has the same stat as Pokemon like Espeon, Gengar, Glaceon, Magnezone, Pokemon that are strong but not completely overpowered. It's weaker than Fluttermane, but also Pokemon like Poltegeist, which okay. If the other stats were better, this special attack would be totally fine. But given how bad everything else is, it's nowhere near high enough to be Monkey Dory's saving grace. What about the ability? Well, it's got two options. Toxic Chain, which might poison a foe when Monkey Dory damages it, and Frisk, which reveals the opponent's item. Toxic Chain is a really mediocre ability that's only useful on Pheasantipity because it's bulky enough that it gets multiple...
Frisk is very funny. Sometimes it's very useful to know your opponent's items, depending on if it's a new meta and that kind of stuff, but it tends to be like between like 2 items a Mon could be holding, and sometimes a Mon will always be holding a singular item. It's like they only are good with this one item. That's just like my experience as a great ball player, by the way. Do not take advice from people.
Chance for it to activate. On a frail Pokemon like Monkey Dory, it's way worse. Not to mention that poison is the least impactful of all the status conditions. If this were freeze or sleep or even burn or paralysis, it could be different, but poison? Whatever. Of course, you could always use Frisk to find out the opponent's items. Except, remember I mentioned open team sheets before?
Oh, I forgot about this. It's useless!
Well, in official tournaments, items are one of the things that you know before the battle starts.
Oh.
In other words, Frisk is one of the worst abilities in the game because it does literally nothing. So I guess Monkey Dory has no choice except to use Toxic Chain. And then there's the moves. What a disaster. Monkey Dory clearly wants to be an offensive Pokemon, which is why it baffles me that they gave it 2 incredible supporting moves. Fake Out and Parting Shot are moves that may seem a little familiar, but Monkey Dory
Incineroar number 9, or is it 10 by now? I've lost count.
is awful at using them. Fake Out stops the target from moving, but requires the user to switch out and in again in order to use the move again. And Parting Shot lowers the target's offensive stats and then switches the user out. Both these moves only shine when the Pokemon using them is tanky enough to
11. Fuck it.
switch in multiple times per battle, something we've established that Monkey Dory absolutely cannot do. Okay, well, what about its offensive moves? Well, it gets Psychic and Sludge Bomb, of course, and then, that's like it. I guess if you want to hit Steel types, you can run Focus Blast, but it's not like that's actually gonna work. Okay, but there has to be something redeeming about Monkey Dory, right? Something I've been saving to give all the monkey heads watching this hope? Nope. That's why it's number 1 on the list, baby. Bye-bye.
Oh, wait, that's it? Okay, well, hi. Wow, we're by ourselves now. Gang, he left us so quickly. Okay. Hi. Yeah, that was a fun video. That was nice to know. A lot of the Pokemon on this list I kind of did expect. The Virizion, the Iron, well, no, Cobalion, not Iron. That's the Paradox part. Cobalion, that kind of stuff. It'd be really funny if I got his name wrong, huh? It is Cobalion, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, I just had to go back just to make sure I didn't forget his name after watching the video. Yeah, I expected Regice to be on there. First of all, thumbnail. Second of all, Ice type. Ice type unfortunately just has the worst like hand dealt to it in terms of resistances, because guess what? It only got dealt one card. It resists itself, ice. It's very funny. I do remember it might have been from a Wolfie video I watched a long time ago where he basically goes, yo, they fixed ice types by making them not ice types. That's crazy, Terra, yo! Okay, and yeah, the Mesfrit was crying on the thumbnail, but I would not have clocked the top spot of being the worst legendary because I had no idea it was a legendary in the first place. Yeah, okay, that's fun. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching with this with me. Bye! Words. Stumbling. Yeah.